now to Jesus, Dr. Mike. There are these certain objections of atheists wherein Jesus, what happened to him? He was born from a virgin, and he died uh, he died, and on the third day he rose again. That pattern is shared by other historical gods like Krishna. Um,
Well, actually, it
yeah,
isn't by Krishna. Krishna did not have a resurrection. There have been people like Acharya S. in her book, The Christ Conspiracy, the greatest story ever sold. And I wrote a lengthy review of that, and in which I even included some comments that I got from a leading Buddhist scholar, a leading Hindu scholar. And they say, a lot of these alleged parallels with Krishna and Buddha are just spurious. They were invented. It never happened. And they can't point to an original source for this. Now, that's not to say you can't find some parallels in some other figures. So, for example, you have Dionysus. I believe he was the offspring of Zeus, that he is said to have created wine, okay? And then you have Thor, whose life was threatened at birth. And I think Dionysus is one that is said to be born of a virgin, but really, no, he came out of a rock. Is that a virgin? But you can find certain parallels. There was a guy named Asclepius. Maybe it's based on a historical figure. We just don't know. But Asclepius is known to be a healer, maybe even having raised someone from the dead. Closer to Jesus' time, you've got Apollonius of Tyana, who lived in the 1st century, and he was a traveling itinerant philosopher, and he is said to have done some miracles. And there are conflicting reports that are mentioned by Philostratus in his Life of Apollonius of Tyana. Some say that he died, some say he did not die, some say he came back from the dead and was seen. Like, he mentions one time account of one of Apollonius's disciples. Now, Philostratus is writing about 125 years after Apollonius's death. So we don't know if this was an original disciple or someone who lived decades later, but this disciple was with some other disciples in a room, and this one disciple was sleeping, and he woke up. He said that Apollonius had appeared to him in a dream. Did anyone else see him? And nobody else did. And that was considered, the resurrection appearance of Apollonius. So what you have to do, and then Hercules, or Heracles in Greek, that he was a hero. And then when he was diminishing in his power and was kind of sickly, he built a large fire, jumped into it. And someone said that he ascended to heaven on the horse Pegasus. So he commits suicide and he ascends to heaven on the horse Pegasus. What skeptics like to do is just say, well, he ascended to heaven, forget the suicide, forget the Pegasus horse. But so what they do is they take all these different figures that are peppered over maybe 1,000 years or even more, and they combine them into a single composite figure, and that's similar to Jesus in some ways. And, that would be the same. I have to give some American examples, not Filipino. You could think of your own for over there. But it would be like a present historian saying, all right, let's take Abraham Lincoln, who was a tall, lanky Illinois senator who got elected to 2 terms as president. And let's take John F. Kennedy, who was graduated from Harvard, became president. And then let's take the fictional character David Palmer, who played the first Black U.S. president in the television series 24. And let's combine all 3 of these figures, and what do you get? Barack Obama, a tall, lanky Illinois senator who became the first Black U.S. president, and he graduated from Harvard. And of course, so therefore Barack Obama never existed, or the story about Barack Obama was invented. And of course they'd say, well, that's really lame, but that's exactly what skeptics are doing in appealing to these similarities in other ancient figures.
Wow, that's I mean, that's sad, you know. I mean, and they're historians. And,
Well,
uh,
let's be let me be clear here.
yes, yes, sure.
There aren't really many professional historians who are making such claims. In fact, um, yeah, and in fact, you'd be hard pressed to find a professional historian, a scholar in a relevant field who's trained in this area, who would
It's like
say that the Christians copied off of these others.
yeah, it's like Dr. Mike. It's like if only a historian would be serious with his job as an historian, he would not make this such claims. You know, he would not believe in this. He would not use this against that Jesus
Yeah.
really is doing this. Because in your case,
You'll
Doctor,
find a few. I mean, there's maybe a handful around the world, okay,
yeah, yeah,
but there's not many of them,
yes. But Doctor Mike,
and they're
what?
not highly regarded at all by
Yes,
other historians.
not regarded. I mean, imagine they studied in a really prestigious university, and then they produce this kind of spurious
Yeah,
explanation.
wonders how good their education was at those universities.
Dr. Mike, what sources would you recommend in regarding this topic on Jesus and the alleged parallels?
The alleged what?
The
Parallels?
parallels, yeah, the parallels.
Okay. Well, there is, I've done some videos on this, so they could go to my YouTube channel. So just go to YouTube, type in my name, Mike Licona, Licona.
Subscribe to his channel, guys.
Subscribe, click the notifications so that you can receive some stuff and updates. And I've got I've got a long lecture on there. Did the early Christians borrow from pagan myths? I think it's called. That's like a 45-minute lecture, and then there's also, I think there's a Q&A to that. Maybe not on that one. So I've got a 45-minute lecture there. And then I have maybe a 5 or 7 minute short video on it on my YouTube channel as well. I forgot what it's called. It might have been Did Christians Borrow, or Were There Pagan Parallels, or something like that. And that was produced just a couple of months ago, that short one. So there's some things like that. There's a book. The name of it eludes me at this point, but you can probably, let me see if I can find it real quick on Amazon. It's by Joe Movahill. But he did his doctoral dissertation on the subject and did a fantastic job where he's looking at different pagan parallels. Okay, so that can be consulted. Lee Strobel, in his book In Defense of Jesus, he interviewed me in there, and he interviewed Edwin Yamauchi, and we both touch on this. So there's some chapters in that book about it. I'd say probably Joe's book is going to be probably the best, most informative on this. Then there's a book. Let's see if I've got it.
Yeah, you have a lot of tons of books there.
Well, it's somewhere on all my shelves here. Oh, it's probably over there. It's called The Riddle of Resurrection, and it's by T.N.D. Mettinger, Mettinger, The Riddle of Resurrection. And he's a Swedish scholar. And I think it was 2001, he wrote a monograph. It's kind of expensive, maybe $60 on where you can order it. It's an academic monograph. And he actually takes a contrary position. He thinks that there are 3 and perhaps as many as 5 dying and rising gods in the ancient Near East that predate Jesus. He does admit that there's a consensus of scholars today that says there are none. But he's a very careful scholar, and he says he thinks there are 3, perhaps 5. He is cautious, and I admire his scholarship. I mean, he acknowledges that he may be wrong, but in the end, then he tries to compare it with Jesus, and he says, well, the things is all of these others that I've cited from the ancient Near East, their death and coming back to life are tied to the agricultural cycles from the dry season to the rainy season, and he says these were fictitious characters who lived in the distant, unnamed past. Whereas Jesus, was a historical character who had lived within only a few decades of when reports of him were being written, and has nothing to do with the agricultural cycles.
Wow.
And he says, no, these people claim to be eyewitnesses of this. He says, it is very different from these other parallels. And he goes on, he says, the riddle remains. So,
Interesting. That's good.
yeah, it's a decent, it's an academic, so it's going to be very dry reading for a lot of people unless you're used to this kind of writing. But it's a very good book. That would be someone who does a very careful analysis, and he comes to the conclusion there are a few, and I think he may be right on some of these, but that doesn't mean the Christians borrowed from them any more than the fact that there were fictitious stories of shipwrecks in ancient novels means that the story of the Titanic was invented. You just don't get to that because there are some similarities. You can find similarities in just about anything.
Yes. Interesting, Dr. Mike. We're going to note that. You viewers will consider that as well. Second to the last objection, and then we're done. Miracles. What are your thoughts on miracles? Like, I just don't believe in miracles.
They happen. They happen. And, skeptics will say, they'll appeal to Ernst Troeltsch's analogy, principle of analogy. Says, look, they don't happen today, therefore they didn't happen in the past because nature acts in the same way. But there are many cases, credible cases of miracles happening today. And so we could turn the principle of analogy on its head and said, because they happen today and things are the same nature in antiquity as they are today, then at least in the laws of nature, because miracles do happen today, then they certainly could have happened in the past. I don't find any of the objections against miracles to be persuasive in the least. I think they're based on an atheistic worldview that just simply is out of touch with reality. When you look at things such as well-evidenced near-death experiences, veridical apparitions of the dead, extreme answered prayer, and numerous instances of well-attested paranormal phenomena, I think the evidence for a supernatural component, a spiritual dimension of reality, I think the evidence is so persuasive that if you take a look at it and still remain an atheist, you at least can't claim to be a realist today. If you deny it based on all the evidence that's out there and all this kind of stuff, the evidence for a supernatural dimension of reality sets a really good background that increases the plausibility of miracles. And when it comes to, say, the miracles of Jesus, these are some of the best attested things about Jesus. They appear in early sources, multiple independent sources. They're even attested by Josephus, an unsympathetic source, who acknowledges that Jesus did amazing deeds. He doesn't call them miracles, but the term he uses for, I think it's paradoxa, the Greek term that he uses
Paradox?
for miracles.
I know, I've heard like baffling deeds, something.
Yeah, that's
Baffling.
what it means. But it's the same thing that he uses of, I think, the miracles of Elijah. So the same term. So, but anyway, here you would have a non-Christian, someone who's a historian who's unsympathetic to the Christian cause. And he acknowledges that Jesus did deeds that astonished crowds. So, so the majority of historians of Jesus, even atheists and agnostics, and it's pretty much a consensus. As far as I know, Bart Ehrman is the only one in print who denies it. But every other historian of Jesus will say that Jesus, we can know about him that he performed extraordinary deeds that were interpreted as miracles and exorcisms. Now, the skeptical ones of course, aren't going to say they were divine miracles and exorcisms, but they will acknowledge that he did extraordinary, astonishing deeds that were interpreted as divine miracles and exorcisms.
Maybe a wonderful source there would be the wonderful, amazing work of Craig Keener, Miracles.
Yeah, now that'd be an outstanding. The 2-volume set by Craig Keener, Miracles, is outstanding.
Yes, and I believe na if in case na you can't afford the book, Craig Keener actually presented this. I think it was in the YouTube channel entitled, I think, Biola University. I think it's in the YouTube channel. You guys can check it out. Friends, thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to our channel, The Fellowship League, and also please click the bell button to receive all of our valuable content in this channel in your notifications. Moreover, we have a Fellowship League page, Facebook page. Please do like and follow and share this page to your friends and families and loved ones who need the encouragement, the facts, the cross, and discourses, fun-filled, with comfort, with intellectual facts and factual discussions for you guys. Thank you very much, and God bless you all.